ColorPop, a game that for me was a complete impulse buy. I saw it in my friendly local game store, I didn't know anything about it. It looked colorful and nice, and the back of the box said that you would touch these tokens and they would pop. That seemed like something fun that my daughters would have fun doing, and this is how I came to the conclusion that I should buy the game, and so I purchased the game without knowing anything about it. Then I played it with my daughters, and today I'm gonna tell a little bit about this game. ColorPop is an abstract game that, as it turns out, must have been inspired by those app type of games where you click on a certain space with a diamond or whatever it is, and you move the remaining ones, and you're trying to form configurations of things to score points. I play one of those on an airplane once. It's not the kind of video game that I play normally when I'm on the ground, but when I'm on airplanes I also watch movies like Dodgeball, so you know, you gotta be understanding of the situation, the circumstances. ColorPop, I have to tell you though, presentation-wise, is pretty impressive. It comes with this special board here that gives an inclination to the game pieces. The board is divided in removable columns, which I'm trying to remove. Here we go. And you load them here from the top by placing these discs in them randomly, and then you put them there. So actually there are a lot of these discs to load, and so yes, it is a pain to set up the game because you need to place them all in there. And also there is this sort of like guard here on top, which makes loading the discs a little more annoying. You cannot just drop them in, you actually have to slide them down and push a little bit, they click. I guess this is meant so that this forms sort of like a hook there to keep the column in place. But somehow I think maybe there were ways of doing that that would have made it easier to load the tokens. But loading the game, loading the board and setting it up is a chore only if you're an adult. As a kid, this is part of the fun. I do with my daughters. They enjoy it almost as much as playing the game because they also enjoy playing the game. To play the game, what do you do? Well, first you assign each player one of these tokens here randomly and secretly at the beginning of the game. Each player has a color that they are working on that will be revealed only at the end of the game. And you win by having only few tokens of that color on the board. When the game ends, which is when no players can take their move anymore, the players reveal their colors, you count how many you have, and the player with the fewest tokens of the color on the board is the winner of the game. Now, how does it work? When it is your turn, you select a configuration of tokens of the same color and you indicate it to start with. For example, say, I'm gonna target that inverted L of orange ones, or these two yellow ones, or these three blue ones. White are wild, so they can be used as any other color. So you select a certain number of tokens. It cannot be only one, it has to be more than one. And that's how the end of the game is determined. When there's a situation when there are only single tokens with no adjacent tokens of the same color, the game is over. So I decide, for example, that I wanna target those three, and then I simply push on them, and they fall through the board, and they slide down at the bottom, which is something that my daughters love. Now, if you play with a kid, you know that the same mechanic brought to life in a way that is tactile, that makes a noise such as that one, that gives them a physical connection, is a mechanic that is more interesting to them. Yes, it may be less elegant for adults, but for young players, this is fun stuff. My daughters really like this, really like targeting and then boom, boom, boom. There's a physical connection, it makes a noise, it's fun to see them sliding down. It's inelegant for adults, but it's great for kids. My daughters are like 5 and almost 6 now, and well, actually they are 4 and one is 5, almost 6. And they love this, they love the physicality involved in this. So what you're trying to do again is simply to remove tokens of your own color, possibly without being seen, possibly without the opponent realizing what you're doing. After a while, be clear, maybe early on I'm trying to manipulate things in such a way that I'm setting things up that is good for me, but after a while I'll consistently be targeting a certain color, especially if I get a sense of what color you have. And so after a while, this is not that deep or impenetrable of a secret. And this is how the game works. You keep playing like this until the game cannot be played anymore because only single tokens remain, and at that point the player with the fewest tokens of their color on the board is the winner of the game. Production wise, as you can see, the game is very beautiful and it's a lot of fun ideas in it, but you can also see sometimes the tokens do get stuck there. I'm glad this happened because I wanted to show it to you, so you need to move the tokens and gently move them down. Now, like in the video games that inspired this, you are trying to see what happens next. It is how the selection you just made alters things and forces the board to change. So you're trying to put tokens of your color together. But really, the initial configuration gives you a lot of what the game is going to be about, really restricts the strategy enormously. Maybe I'm blue and there are a couple of things that I can do, but really eliminating these three so I can attach these two and score them is a pretty big commitment if I know that another player has orange. But then other times there will be nothing I can do. Maybe I'll wait for the orange player to do it, but then maybe somebody else will mess something else up. So the game changes, the board changes, but not enormously, not as much as it would be desirable in most cases. You may also see players that just burn the wild tokens as fast as possible to deny them to the other players, but the strategy is not big. I think that really 70-80% of the game is simply determined by how the configuration, how the initial random setup works, or how the initial tokens are signed, which is the same. Once you have the configuration and the tokens, I do not know that what the players are doing is all that relevant. I can't figure that out. Maybe there are levels of depth and strategy that I haven't been able to glean yet, but to me, this is a game that is super simple, super linear, a little too much for most players. But it is fun to push on those tokens and see them slide down. Even as an adult, I have to say that there is something to it. So this is, in my opinion, is a pretty mediocre game. Presentation-wise, looks great. The tokens are so nice and colorful and shiny and pleasant to handle. It's fun to make the machine work. Presentation-wise, A/A+, maybe even. I would say A, not A+, because of small things such as the token getting stuck or loading the tokens is not that easy. Gameplay-wise, no, not above the C category. C, maybe C+. I find the game-wise very mediocre, very uninteresting. I would almost say insignificant. I don't find that there is much game in here. You push them and sometimes you adjust things so that you're able to score a decent group of tokens, but maybe in doing so you gave a huge advantage to somebody else, and you get the sense that if you didn't do it, then somebody else would have done it. I do get the sense that the game almost plays itself because the decisions are very obvious and you do not have many, and they're not all that interesting. They're really constricted, and really if my tokens are all scattered at the beginning of the game, maybe I will figure out ways of putting them all together, but in many cases I'm just doomed by that initial draw. So gameplay wise, very mediocre, and it's a game that I highly recommend to families. Yes, no contradiction, because for kids, this is a great game. They love it. And yes, there are many children games that I wouldn't play with adults, but I love how they work with my kids, and I love how my kids interact with the game system. This is one such game. My kids that are almost 6 and 4, are seeing patterns, so their brains are working at a level of challenge that is good for them. It's just right. They can handle that. They can see the patterns that are obvious, and they can see what the next pattern will be. They can see that if I remove these two, then I'll have some blue together. But then, all right, even if I have blue, what I'm gonna do with that one? I'm stuck. Maybe. There you go. They can see the obvious patterns that are visible there, and they can see the next pattern. So that is good for their brains because it gives them a just right challenge. It gives them a tactile aspect. They do get a sense that they're manipulating the game. There's a physical element that they find very entertaining, very amusing. And guess what? In doing so, they're actually playing an analog game, not as they always do, demanding to play a video game, an app game, to watch a video. In my family, you may imagine, we're pretty conservative when it comes to video time. We do not have much screen time. We do not even have a TV in the main house. We have a TV in the basement, an old TV that we only use for video games on special occasions. And we play a lot of board games. That may come as a shock and a new thing to you, but yeah, let's not sink in. We do play a lot of board games, but the addictive quality of screen-based entertainment is so strong. Even my daughters are always tempted by that. That is always a factor. And to me, anything that drags them away from that and gives them something different is a good thing. This game shows them it's not just, an analog alternative to a video game, to an app. It is actually something that shows them part of the fun of analog gaming, which is the tactile experience, is the color. It is really engaging at a visceral, physical level with the design. And boom, 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 and boom. Yeah. Once more. One more. Oh, come on. Say myself, I can't stop it. But then what happened to that one? When did that fall? Who knows? It is a fun tactile experience to play with kids. It is a nice alternative. If your kid's already addicted to this kind of app, then this is a nice alternative. So again, it's a fairly mediocre game for adults, not one that I would ever pull out during a game night with adult friends, but one that my daughters have played. I enjoy playing it with them. I saw how excited they got into this very simple system, and I'm happy that I bought it as a family game. I bought it as an abstract game, hoping that maybe I could play with adults and kids. Not gonna be the case, but I'm gonna play with my daughters in the future, and my daughters have had fun playing it, and I'm happy to have it. I'm happy to have it as a family game, or to say as a kids game. Family games to me are like kids, King of Tokyo, that I can play with adults and kids. A game that I recommend to parents. I even highly recommend to parents that are seeing their kids get a little bit addicted to video games and screen-based entertainment. I recommend it to parents and families, not to adults that do not have kids or are not planning to play with kids, because I don't really think that there is enough of a game here to keep adults entertained when they're playing with other adults only.